Imagine you're on Facebook, you see a post. You decide that you want to post a meme in response, and the posting of that meme gets you thrown into jail for 40 freaking days. You can't get out because some judge has said that your bail is $2 million. I shit you not. $2 million bail for what? For posting a meme on Facebook. And that's exactly what happened to Larry Bouchard Jr. from Lexington, Tennessee. I invited a First Amendment lawyer from the organization FIRE to come and talk about not only Larry's criminal case, but also talk about why free speech has been weaponized the way that it has, especially in Trump regime 2.0, and why things like the lawsuit that Iowa pollster Ann Seltzer has been facing that was brought by Donald Trump because of his thin skin, why lawsuits like that have gained significant litigation importance as we try to face down attempts to stomp on our First Amendment rights. And joining me now, I have the privilege of being able to spend some time with Adam Steinbaugh. He is a litigator for FIRE. FIRE stands for Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, and it sounds like it's exactly what it is. But Adam, just get our viewers caught up to speed quickly before we get into Larry Bouchard Jr.'s case. What is FIRE?
FIRE is a nonprofit organization that defends free speech across the political spectrum. So I wake up in the morning defending a pro-choice student group, and in the afternoon, it's a pro-life student group. We believe that the First Amendment protects everyone.
You know, I'm really important, Adam, that you're laying the groundwork for it the way that you just did, because I think some people think that the defense of free speech, First Amendment protected conduct is only being invoked in a certain way for maybe just, quote, liberals or Democrats. But like you just said, free speech belongs to everybody with certain limitations, but it belongs to everybody, right? Regardless of political affiliation.
That's correct. And too often we see political figures, law enforcement going after speech. And very often people are, depending on which side of the aisle they're on, whose ox is being gored, you might kind of turn a blind eye to it if it's one of your enemies.
Adam, one of the reasons I wanted to speak with you and to highlight the work that you're doing at FIRE is you were a part of a criminal case. And to be clear, you're not counsel for Larry Bouchard Jr., but you did file a records request at FIRE for some of the documents that dealt with Larry's case. To get people caught up to speed, Larry Bouchard Jr. is from Lexington, Tennessee. He was arrested and booked on September 21st of 2025. And up until just a few days ago, Larry was looking at a $2 million bail, which if I said that to anybody, right, Adam, they'd be like, oh shit, what did this guy do? But Larry, through his own words, said, I don't think I committed a crime. I may have been an asshole. To which the cop that he was saying this to said, that's not illegal. Adam, what the hell happened with Larry Bouchard Jr.'s criminal case in Tennessee?
Yeah, and the cop who said that to him was laughing at the time, but this is not a laughing matter.
No.
This is a guy who he sees that there's a Charlie Kirk vigil being promoted not too far from his home.
And he sees it on Facebook, right?
Just yeah, it's on Facebook. And he posts a whole bunch of memes in this group criticizing the right and gun control. And one of these is a quote from Donald Trump saying, quote, "We have to get over it." And this was Trump referencing a shooting at a high school in another state called Perry High School. Now, the group or the place where this vigil was taking place was Perry County, Tennessee. So the
totally different state.
Totally different state. He's talking about a shooting that actually happened, and he's accurately quoting Donald Trump. And he posts this in this group. But the sheriff in Perry County says, aha, that is a threat. You are essentially saying that this is what Donald Trump would say when you come and shoot up our local high school. It's just leaps and bounds and spinning plates, trying to make all these inferential references to interpret this as a threat. So the police show up at Larry's house. The first time they show up, it's the local police department where he lives. We kind of tell him, we don't really know what the deal is here, but we got to complain about it. Have a good night. A couple hours later, a number of police officers show up with a warrant in hand and pull him out of his house. They take him to jail that night, and he was there for almost 40 days.
You know, Adam, what I find to be offensive, especially as a fellow member of the bar, us being lawyers, is not only was this arrest approved by the district attorney in that jurisdiction, Hans Schwendeman, but a judicial commissioner had to also sign off on this arrest warrant, which was effectively Larry Bouchard Jr. being criminally prosecuted for expressing his opinion by way of a meme in a Facebook group. But this was traveling under a very specific Tennessee law. Am I right about that?
That's correct. Tennessee has a recent statute dealing with threats of mass violence at schools. And I think,
understandably, in Tennessee, yeah.
of course, and everyone I think would agree that it's important that we deter true threats of violence. But this was not a true threat of violence. And when Larry, the body camera footage shows that when Larry is finally told what he's being arrested for, the officer kind of chuckles and says, yeah, it's a threat of mass violence at a school. And Larry says, a school? He has no idea why this is a school, why this involves a school at all. And when we went and asked the school for records about this incident, because the sheriff claimed that this was causing mass hysteria among the parents, the school came back and said, we don't have a single solitary record about this. Not an email, not a text message, nothing. You would think that if a school was actually dealing with a serious threat of violence, it would be contacting parents and saying, hey, this is what has happened. Nobody should worry about this. Everything is okay. This is what we've done to take care of this. There's nothing.
And what's kind of outrageous too is Sheriff Nick Weems, who is the guy, the cop who was kind of the perpetrator of what was happening here. He admitted that the meme that Larry posted does not actually contain any threatening words, which we know because you just said them and we saw them for ourselves when my amazing producer Sydney put it up for us. No threatening words that would lead investigators to think it was a real threat. And then you at Fire did this records request to the school. There's no communications from parents, school teachers, students, or even members of the community that they thought there was any type of threat whatsoever that was posed by Larry's meme.
No, and if you look at the actual responses in this thread of Facebook posts where he posted this, nobody there says, hey, what are you talking about? Are you threatening something here? Nobody's responding to it like that. Everyone except the sheriff appears to have understood that this was political speech, and political speech is very clearly protected by the First Amendment.
You know, I also read somewhere when I was preparing to speak with you the following. When one of the officers came over locally to speak to Larry, he said, I don't know why I'm here, right? Like, I don't even know why I'm supposed to be here, but they wanted me to come make contact with you and letting you know they may be in contact with you and see if you still live here. I don't know exactly what they were referring to you, to which Bouchard said, oh, I do, Charlie Kirk. And to Larry's credit, he's like, bro, I'm not taking it down. It's my protected political speech. It's my right to be able to leave it there. And Nick Weems, the sheriff, later on was like telling a local affiliate, he's like, well, if he'd just taken it down, it probably never would have ended up this way. But the guy spent 40 days in jail because who the hell can post a $2 million bond?
No, and for people who are not familiar with the criminal justice system, a $2 million bond, you're going to have to pony up a lot of money in order to be able to make that bond.
At least $200,000 cash sometimes to be able to do it.
And who has that sitting around? This is a retired police officer. He is working with a medical delivery company, even though he's retired, and he lost that job because of this arrest. This is not someone who has the ability to pony up $200,000 to pay for his free speech.
That's crazy. And the fact that this guy worked as law enforcement, was a cop himself for decades, you would think that they would almost give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Like he would understand kind of what's at issue, but obviously not. It makes me so worried, Adam. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you. You know, it actually took, I think, the kindness of total strangers on Facebook of all platforms, right? Which sometimes I think can be a total cesspool. But like, it took kindness of strangers who launched like a big Facebook page, like basically Free Larry, that kind of thing, to bring awareness to this, because not a lot of us are monitoring things that are happening in Lexington, Tennessee.
No, and a guy from South Carolina named Chris set up this Facebook page called Justice for Larry Bouchard.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know Larry. He just saw this in the media and he launched this campaign. And through that, he helped attract local media attention, which I think was very critical here, because we had coverage from The Intercept, we had coverage from a number of outlets, but it was this interview with the local TV journalist with the sheriff that really drove this back into the national attention. And that, I think, really pushed us over the edge.
No, and thank you for reminding me. The Intercept deserves full credit here. They did an incredibly detailed original article about Larry, what happened, and they've done follow-up pieces that have also been equally as detailed and important, which underscores why independent media these days has been so important. But independent media, we need the protections of the First Amendment. We need the ability to be able to express our opinions about what's happening. Your thoughts about the fact that the First Amendment has now been weaponized in a way that we see is veering on the absurd when it involves somebody like Larry Bouchard, who 40 freaking days in jail is nothing to, laugh at. But then we also see things happening like in front of ICE detention facilities, Adam, where people are just there expressing their displeasure with what's happening with Trump's immigration enforcement campaign.
Yeah, the First Amendment is, it's very easy for politicians and just members of the public to say, yeah, I love free speech. Free speech is as American as apple pie. It becomes difficult when it is actually applied because it is almost always applied to the speech that we dislike and find uncomfortable. But we spend a lot of attention and energy focused on what the national federal government is doing, what the president is currently saying about free speech. And by the way, over the weekend, he again suggested that criticizing him on television is illegal. But in a lot of these kind of cases, it is the local police, it is the individual officer, it is the guy with the baton who is violating the First Amendment. And that is just as important as what the president is doing.
I saw here that when he got out of jail, Larry posted immediately back on social. But one of the things he did, well, first of all, I'll give this guy, my hat tip to Larry on this. He posted a live Elton John video from 1985 to the song "I'm Still Standing," which, wink, wink, I gotcha, Larry. But you know what, Adam? I read this too. He had a celebratory post about his new grandchild who was born when he was in jail. I can't imagine being in jail for 40 days, looking down the barrel of criminal charges for something like this. You're missing things like your grandchild being born, and you're missing things like your job, so you lose your job. I mean, there are very real consequences to the pushing of the limits of people testing what's going to be legally acceptable when it comes to prosecuting people under the First Amendment.
Nobody should spend a minute in handcuffs for their free speech. And that's an awful lot of minutes to be in jail. Nearly 40 days. It's an outrage.
So I also wanted to talk to you because at Fire, you're involved in some pretty hefty litigation, including a well-known and respected Iowa pollster by the name of Ann Seltzer. She and I would believe it's the Des Moines Register were sued by Donald Trump for defamation. It was removed to federal court. Looks like it's been remanded back to state court, putting aside the procedural machinations of what's happening with that lawsuit. Adam, why has it become the kind of cause of action du jour for someone like Donald Trump with his thin skin to sue under these bullshit claims of defamation?
Well, he's not suing her for defamation. It's even worse than that. He's
suing
this is
her.
The
consumer fraud one. That's right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
It's one of the number of consumer fraud complaints he's brought against a number of people that have criticized him, and they are frivolous. They are completely meritless claims, and it is a shame that we do not have a robust anti-SLAPP statute in our federal courts and across the country. And for those who don't know, an anti-SLAPP statute is a law that allows someone who is a defendant in a lawsuit to say, hey, my First Amendment rights are being implicated here. This lawsuit is about my free speech. And it puts the onus on the plaintiff, the person suing, to come in and pony up with evidence to be able to prove that they actually have a viable claim. And if they can't, then they wind up having to pay the attorney's fees for the defendant. And that's a way to encourage lawyers to take free speech cases, because there's not a whole lot of money in defending free speech, unfortunately. And it also discourages people from bringing those kind of lawsuits. Now, Donald Trump, in his lawsuits against Ann Seltzer, there's now 2 of them that he has filed. Wow. In his second one, he filed it the day before Iowa's new anti-SLAPP statute took effect because he did not want to be subject to that process.
Timing is everything, as they say. it's important note that you make that only certain states actually have anti-SLAPP statutes, not all of them. And some people are actually forum shopping to do litigation in places where they know they won't have exposure should they bring a bullshit lawsuit like that.
Yeah, you'll see people file in states where they do not have a claim, and they'll do that either because the statute of limitations is longer, so they can sue over something someone said years ago, or they'll file in places where they know that the anti-SLAPP statute will not apply because the state doesn't have one, or because the federal courts don't apply a state anti-SLAPP statute in federal court.
You know, Adam, I'm glad that you corrected me about the cause of action because it wasn't defamation, although I do think defamation has become a little bit of a cause of action du jour these days. But this consumer fraud kind of strategy is something I thought that was kind of unique to be deployed by Trump. And if it sounds familiar to the people that are tuning in, Trump also pulled the same shit in that lawsuit with 60 Minutes that he brought in Texas over the edited quote unquote edited, deceptively edited interview that was done of Kamala Harris. And it resulted in a settlement, as we know, Adam, CBS Paramount settling with Donald Trump. Your thoughts about how the kind of strategic litigation pathway has evolved from maybe just a straight, you've defamed me, you said something wrong about me, you did it knowingly, et cetera, or was just this wild disregard for the truth, versus these consumer fraud actions that are being taken, this idea that you're trying to dupe consumers when there's this presentation of information through maybe the Des Moines Register or maybe through 60 Minutes.
Right. So consumer fraud is about being sold a product that the person manufacturing it or selling it lied about. That's like buying a car that's a lemon that you know the guy who sold it to you rolled back the dial on the mileage to make it seem like it's newer than it actually is. And the reason that you have politicians and litigants trying to find these sort of quote unquote creative ways to sue is because defamation has not proven to be a viable cause of action for them. We in this country give breathing room to speech. You're allowed to be wrong about someone who is famous, someone who is a political figure like the president. And that's called the actual malice rule. You're not liable for speech under defamation theory if you believed that speech to be true, even if it later turns out that you were wrong, even unreasonably wrong. But politicians tend to sue on other theories because they know that they can't prove that. They know that a lot of people who are criticizing them, even if they are wrong, are allowed to do that. That's what we have in a free country. That's what free speech protects.
That's what our democracy is for. So your thoughts about the idea that Trump will be, and maybe some of his lackeys, cronies, and buddies are going to try to test the limits of defamation's legal standard by trying to get a revisiting of that legal standard with the Supreme Court of the United States?
Yeah, there's been sort of a push to revisit New York Times versus Sullivan, which is the seminal Supreme Court case about the right to be wrong about other people. I think that would be a travesty. I think that case forms a very important background or backbone for the protection of free speech in this country. And if that case is revisited, I very much worry about the future of free speech.
Adam, you're doing some really incredible and important work at FIRE. For people that are tuning in, if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing, what FIRE is doing, and if they can support FIRE, where should they go?
Fire.org. That should work. Or if that doesn't, thefire.org.
Great. Well, Adam Steinbaugh, I am so grateful for you taking the time to kind of get us caught up to speed on what happened to Larry Bouchard Jr. I hope that he gets the justice that he deserves. I am sorry, and please let him know I'm sorry that he had to do those 40 days in jail, but I do think cases like his are important for the American public to see and to hear about, because I think it underscores just how powerful the First Amendment really is. And I am grateful as an American who believes in democracy for the work that you are doing at FIRE. So Adam Steinbaugh, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for drawing attention to this. It's an important story, an important issue.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Katie Fang here. We launched the Katie Fang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.